Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in this galaxy far, far away. My name's Charlie Savidge,
And my name's Ethan Odenthal.
and welcome to episode 21 of Outer Rim Radio, the podcast made by Star Wars nerds for Star Wars nerds. And after what feels for a year, we finally return with a topic near and dear to both of us. And today we're discussing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Not Survivor, even though that just came out. We'll talk about that very soon. But it's a third-person action-adventure game following the life of Padawan Cal Kestis 5 years following Order 66.
Yeah, that was a mouthful, Charlie.
It's a lot of words.
Yeah, I don't like the new title scheme. I mean, I get it. I saw this really funny post on Reddit, and people were complaining that they had bought the Star Wars anthology on Steam, and all of the trademarks were lined up, and then you get to Jedi Fallen Order, and it's just like it used to be Star Wars trademark because they were licensing the game to other companies, and it wasn't studios that were,
like BioWare and
stuff like that. So but I could see that you driving someone nuts if you were to see that every time you open Steam. And granted, if you're the kind of Star Wars fan where your entire Steam library is just Star Wars games, I mean, yes, but also no. I mean,
you should play other games though. There's
better games. There's better games. There's a lot of really bad Star Wars games, but
wait, you don't love Star Wars Bombad Racing?
Oh, yeah, that's different. That's near and dear to us, Charlie. How many times have we played that?
Oh Lord!
If you haven't,
wait, it's not even before, that. It's Jedi Bombad Racing, which is even worse.
Jedi Bombad Racing. This is what I want to know. How, for the people out there, one, look it up because it has the craziest graphics. If you want to see Darth Maul with a head the size of a watermelon, it's like a 2001 kart racing game.
Oh, my bad. Super Bombad Racing.
Super Bombad Racing. It's
even better
than.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I want to find
it's
out.
Such a bad kart racer. It's so funny.
I'm gonna look it up on eBay. This is what I wanted to
see. I have it.
I know you have it, but I'm saying for anyone who wants to play it out there, you can get it pre-owned for $7.19, or I see a brand new copy of it for $180. So
it's one of those blue disc games, so it may not run on your PS2. Have fun with that. Anyway, before we dive into Jedi Fallen Order, we want to talk about some of the news that all came from Celebration. Obviously, we got the super cool things like the trailers. The Ahsoka trailer was public, but there were private trailers for what was it? For Skeleton Crew and/or Season 2, Bad Batch Season 3, which will be the final season of Bad Batch, and Star Wars Visions, which, of course, for us, we're recording this on May 3rd, so it comes out tomorrow, May 4th. But the main thing we want to talk about the most is the movies. We want to try to speculate responsibly, but we'll see how that goes. I think the one I'm surprisingly the most interested in is... So we have 3 of them. And the first one is the Dawn of the Jedi movie, which is done by James Mangold, who did Logan and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which comes out soon. But what are your thoughts on them doing a movie that's set 25,000 years back?
So I think it's interesting because I really like, one, the fact that we're starting to go back to where there's not an established canon. That's one of the things, for people who aren't as diehard Star Wars fans, like my wife, she loves the prequels, but there's so much referencing and working with the same material that it can get annoying for people at times. Whereas with this, dealing with the High Republic, that was really refreshing. Charlie, I enjoyed it a lot, and that was we had a lot of he's got it right there. There's so many books. It's so fun. There's so much collaboration, and it's really fun to talk about, and because we don't really have ground, so there's a lot of healthy speculation you can do as to what's going to happen. But with going this far back, it's actually something that hasn't really been talked a lot about, even if you're one of those Star Wars Explained, knows everything about everything Star Wars.
Yeah, nerds. You just get something vague and it's the wellspring of life and the Force.
right. Like this
The
is
universe
one.
was
This is
created. We're gonna
probably
mention it in a reference book, and we're gonna talk about it in like this paragraph in the lore in this one book.
yeah. Like that's if you like that stuff, this is going to be for you. But this title, and I think this idea was originally, if you look it up, in 2012 there was a comic series also called Dawn of the Jedi. Um, and it's not canon anymore, so there's nothing in this canon.
Woohoo
But
legends.
that, yeah, it's Legends now. So it was basically the founding of the Jedi Order. About it was like 36,000 years ago, before, or yeah, years ago, 36,000 years. Yes, this is present history.
Yes.
36,000 years before the original Star Wars films. So it's pretty interesting. I have a lot of respect for going back this way, but Charlie, you've heard me complain about this ever since I read the books with Jason Solo in them. I'm just so hesitant now that I feel like anything Disney does is going to, yes, we struck that from canon, but let's steal half of it and pretend it was our ideas and credit none of the original artist,
Yeah,
which is
and I
pretty
think that's a
cynical.
valid criticism, but also yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
also nice because sometimes it's like, I mean, you haven't seen the show, but like, because you're behind.
yeah, we
But
know, we know.
anyways, there's just like a side character, in Obi-Wan who's briefly just like it's like a kid that's going through the you played Survivor, not to go to Survivor, but you know how there's like the hidden path, or
Mhm.
yeah, where they're smuggling all the Force sensitive children. That's in the Obi-Wan show, so small spoiler for that. But what's great is that like they'll do little things like the one of the characters was like a Legends Jedi, and that was like him as a kid in that show. So there's like little things like that that I always like when they try to bring things back into it, because
Right.
that
I
is
mean, even to a degree, what they kind of did with some of the side characters in the Empire, like giving Thrawn, pulling him back into a much larger
exactly.
role. There was a lot people were worried about, and like, of course, I'm super excited for this. I just like, and I could
Yeah.
be saying this, and this original comic series is ass. I've never read it. Like, I have no
Yeah.
context to go off of. But like, as someone who is a writer, and has kind of seen what Disney does, I'm just hopeful for something new and fresh. And of course, we'll see this. And you know, if it's just bringing something back in that they want to include in the canon, I hope it's in a way that's unique, but pays to respect to what happened before. And if they want to go a completely new direction, I hope they do that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool idea just because there's nothing
Yeah.
going on. At the very least, I hope from our side of things, they write lots of books and have plenty of things for us to talk about, not just
Yeah.
this one movie.
Yeah. And I think this is gonna sound maybe a little weird, but what I'm really excited about is to see like I like having the starting point of like how far back and where the technology is, sort of deal. Because
Oh, that's a good point.
like we don't necessarily know how like is this world gonna have spaceships? Is it gonna have that much interplanetary travel? How's that gonna be? Because like one of the things I love about the High Republic is that we have the Santecas, and that they're like discovering and making new hyperspace lanes, and
Yeah,
like
yeah. I mean, that's
so
like
like I like
half
to
of the
see
plot
like
of Nihil.
yeah, yeah, with their warpaths and whatever, and like I love just seeing like how that progresses, because I think it is kind of jarring sometimes to go back to like things like KOTOR, and there's just like they have some advanced technology sometimes, and you're like, oh well, that's different than that, and it's like sometimes you're like, this seems almost on par with what we see like in the original trilogy and other things, and it's supposed to be thousands of years back.
Right, which is like some of it's like, oh, it's a slow crawl. Like once all
Yeah,
these civilizations found to space this sort of travel, all this technology was condensed. And it's like, where do you go from there? I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute with Fallen Order, but like the Zepho, where it was this ancient civilization,
Shin.
which is in many ways technologically and spiritually more advanced than anything you've seen. So I think like for me, like thinking creatively about it, like there's a lot you can do with it in
Yeah,
terms of like look what there is to go, and look what they've lost. So we'll see. I mean, it's
Yeah,
always cool. It's a fun little swap to play with. So I'm super
yeah.
excited about it. But
I definitely,
um,
I definitely think that's like the most interesting, just like in terms of shaping Star Wars. And
yeah,
then our next one is the New Republic movie, which, thank God, it's a Dave Filoni movie, which I'm super happy about. I imagine if you're watching this, you know who the heck that is. But if you don't, he's pretty much responsible for the Mandalorian, the Ahsoka show, everything in there. Book of Boba Fett, did Clone Wars, Rebels. Even before that, he did Avatar: The Last Airbender, and a little bit of King of the Hill. So that's your fun fact. But I'm assuming that is just going to be the like convergence of literally everything that is going on in that time period, that it will be the epic. A lot of people are saying it's like Avengers, and even Dave quoted, like, pretty much responded to that, and he's like, we're definitely finding a way to like make it work. So Odie, what's your take?
yeah. I mean, I feel quite differently about this. Is not me being in like a space of like I'm better than this. Like it's not cinema like some people are with the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Like that can be hard sometimes. So I think there's a way to do it that's artful, because one of the beautiful things about Star Wars for me has always been like the hero's journey. Like it's a very classic format. It's
Yeah.
literally, if you look at old interviews, or just look at the base from which George Lucas wrote all the original trilogy, it's where it comes from. And so there's just this hero going through this journey. I mean, it's similar to what Cal goes to. It's just very much the story of Star Wars. And when you're like bringing all these awesome characters in together, it's really cool and it's great fan service. But I also like
You
Dave
want it to
Filoni
mean
is a
something.
I want it to
Like,
mean something. He's a great storyteller, and I want to see that.
yeah.
But I mean, there's one thing to say like everybody's going to be on the screen for an hour 40 of action packedness, or it's just going to be like, hey, everything is converging,
Yeah.
and it's going to click and make sense, and that's what I'm excited for, because there's so much we don't know, and a lot of the future of Star Wars is going to depend on what happens in these, in my opinion, in these three movies that we're talking about right now.
I entirely agree, because I think there'll be a jumping off point for like that's going to be everything for books and comics, other than like the High Republic. But we're going to get the High Republic in live action with the Acolyte. I did forget to mention that there was a trailer for the Acolyte as well. Which fun thing that they showed was there is one High Republic character that we're familiar with that will be appearing in live action, which is Vernestra Rowe. So that's fun.
Cool.
But
yeah, that'll be really cool.
yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with Acolyte. Also, they got the guy that plays Chewbacca. He's going to be a Wookiee Jedi.
Nice.
In that show, which
those.
Yes, I always love that. And also, in his interview, he said he based the fighting styles off of, because he was playing Ghost of Tsushima, which I was like, yes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And apparently,
I mean,
the show just has a lot of murder, so like just a lot of violence and good fights. And I'm like, if I get more Star Wars fights, that's everything.
that's fair. I would say that's odd, but like that's kind of a weird way to think about it. But then I'm thinking back to Visions, and like that was literally all Visions was just
Yeah,
90% of it was
well, yeah,
anime
because it's so
combat. Like,
yeah, it's so Kurosawa
yeah.
inspired. So it makes sense that like the samurai, the epic anime fights, or something that's reflected back, because that is a part of Star Wars. Is taking
Well, I mean, it's
like the small conflict and making it universal.
Yeah, and even if you look at, if you're speaking about Japanese inspiration, we'll talk about this with Fallen Order, but like the combat system in the game, the directors were very clear. Like it was based off a lot of Japanese games, where that was like basically Souls games.
Yeah,
A lot of that kind of that art style and play style. So, it's something that kind of lives in Star Wars. So I'm not surprised.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
but super
excited
cool.
for that. We'll see how that goes. So I feel so much of that is contingent on what happens in Jesus Christ, Ahsoka, and Mando going forward.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's just, this is where people get to speculate. This is going to be the culmination of everything Dave's done, and I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, I'm super excited for him to direct his first movie, because God, I love everything in Clone Wars and Rebels, and it's just
for you and I, like our age of Star Wars fans, like people say George Lucas, but Star Wars really is Dave Filoni to us.
Yeah, like as much as it is George, like don't like we grew up with the movies obviously, but so much of what Star Wars is to us is like when you're a kid just watching Cartoon Network and watching the Clone Wars.
And even as an adult now, like
yeah,
being excited
go
for
back
Thursday,
and watch it. I've been rewatching it with my mom, getting her caught up. I'm gonna rewatch Rebels. She's gonna be watching it through her first time. So that his involvement in Mando, that's like everything with Star Wars to me. So yeah, super excited for that. And then finally, I'm excited for it, which is probably according to angry people on the internet, this is the most relevant movie or controversial movie, which is the new Jedi Order movie, which is being directed by God, I cannot say her name. I'm just gonna say that right now. But Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, which what I knew her from was Miss Marvel. What I didn't know was that she's also a fantastic journalist and film documentarian. So
yeah, I mean, like this is a pretty interesting, and I get where you say controversial, and
just because so many people just hate the sequels and also make it their personality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people, but not in the way where it's rooted in my hatred towards women. So
everything for me is around just plot.
yeah, and like I'm actually like I think it's
and I still enjoy the movies. Like they're still like
yeah, I mean Rey's a cool character, but I'm always like I'm still like I remember just being so hurt in the movie theater as a teenager when Finn didn't become a Jedi, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
What? But we're not going to open those wounds right now, Charlie. Let's talk about this. But yeah, I mean, like this is a really cool person to have directing because this is a really different take. And as much as we love the Daves of the world who are just so immersed in the Star Wars canon, there's something to be said about bringing someone who is, I mean, she's a Pakistani Canadian journalist. I mean, it's the first thing that comes up. She's not a director by trade. I mean, she's a filmmaker, but she's more of a journalist than anything else. She's had countless documentaries about, but it all focuses on gender inequality against women around the world. So I think when you're looking at taking the canon of Star Wars and bringing that into a hero can be anyone, you're looking at Rey, who is a strong character, and I know for some of the young women we've grown up with, we've been around in college who love Star Wars, like that Rey was an important character.
Exactly.
Rey was something cool to them. I mean, I remember one of my girlfriends in college, we used to do like a fundraising event every year for Halloween, and she dressed up as Rey, and so many little girls were so excited that it was Rey there, and I was like, this is awesome. So as much as I want to shit on those movies, like I'm super excited for the direction this is going, purely because it's something new, it's something fresh. Am I going to tell you that I'm super excited about the Rey founding a Jedi Order and where that's going to go? No, I'm skeptical, but it's new, it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I say I wasn't excited. I'm
gonna watch it.
If there's anything Star Wars other than it being in Fortnite, I'm in basically. Which there's so much Star Wars content in Fortnite, but I can't justify a battle pass. I'll spend $100 on a special edition of a digital game. Sure. Will I get the Fortnite battle pass? No.
And I don't blame you.
I don't need V-Bucks in my life.
I've never played Fortnite in my life.
Battlefront 2 still exists, so I can live through that.
Oh, true. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say for this because we don't know a ton about it.
I mean, hopefully John Boyega comes back and is a Jedi, because that's basically what they've been leaning into with the LEGO specials.
Yeah, if they don't, man, and this is another, let's tailor a movie towards China, I'm going to be so livid. My dream, my hopes and dreams for Star Wars are riding on their relationship with John Boyega, so we'll see.
Yeah, he's been seemingly more willing to come back around to it, as much as he in the past has been like, I'm done. I've had my time.
He was pretty miffed after all that stuff happened, which,
I don't blame him. I would be upset too, but I'm also like, I want him back.
Yeah,
I
but we'll
liked
see.
I liked Finn
There's
a
a lot.
lot.
People
And
talk
he's a great
about
actor and seemingly
Grogu.
a wonderful person on several levels. So
Yeah, he's a good guy. We talked about this the other day. Grogu, he'll be like 101, right?
yes, that is. I did the math on that. He will be
And
101 years old, according to. And Yoda was teaching other Jedi by
100.
age 100, according to the Timelines book that I got. It's in the basement, actually. I don't have it behind me. But I'm assuming that's at least full adulthood.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Which also everything in Book of Boba Fett and Mando Season 1 apparently takes place in 1 year, which people got upset about. But I'm also like, I also think so Jon Favreau made a statement saying it was across a couple years. I think he meant a couple years of production, but everyone thought it was a couple years in both. And I was like, either way, it makes sense. So I'm like, regardless.
Yeah. I mean, does it change the story? Not really.
Yeah.
Like, they got to fill in that time one way or another. That's a long time. I mean, we'll talk about this as we get into this, and then we talk into
You could have a
Jedi
spin-off
Survivor.
Mando comic of like something that happens in 3 weeks or 3 years for me. So it's like,
yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do we got anything else left for news, Charlie?
Nothing else. Just all those
Cool.
trailers. In case you didn't see it, the Ahsoka one is out publicly. It's great. The bonus one is that they showed Thrawn. Also, Lars Mikkels is coming back to play Thrawn, which I'm super happy about. And then, in addition to that, there was a shot of Sabine using Ezra's lightsaber. And then we get these cool new, I guess they're just dark side Jedi, which we could get into that later, and they're very intentionally like a faded orange sort of lightsaber. And there definitely seems to be like a master Padawan dynamic going on and stuff with the world between worlds. There's a lot of things. I don't know where it's going. I just trust Dave, and we're going to get through it. We're going to enjoy it. And I have a feeling I'll somehow end up crying. So that's usually how those things go.
That's literally all of Rebels. It's just kind of a mindfuck. And then you're like, I'm crying. Someone died, and my heart is broken. And
yeah. Lord.
This is where the men cry. I'm kidding. I'm not going
to act like I don't cry over Star Wars.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's talk about Cal Kestis.
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you either played the game or you want to learn the game, whatever. Because a lot of people, I know several people who would jumped in and played Jedi Survivor without ever playing
wild
which
behavior.
I think is a mistake. This is a great game, but just to kind of give you the context,
it's hard, I will say after playing Survivor, it might be hard to go back and play this again, but
yeah, which we'll get into with gameplay, which is not a bad thing for anyone wondering.
Yeah,
but
it's just because the design is so smooth. But anyway,
yeah. So sorry, Trey.
No, you're fine.
So basically, this is set in year 14 BBY. We're following the journey of Cal Kestis. He was a Jedi Padawan. He's now cut off from the Force after the events of Order 66. So he's surviving now as a scrapper on the junkyard planet of Bracca. But after revealing his Force powers to save a dear friend named Prof, shout out to Prof, great character. Cal finds himself not only being hunted by the Empire, but also rescued by former Jedi Seer Junda and her pilot Grease Dritus, otherwise known as Greasy Money, baby.
Greasy Money.
I want Greasy Money t-shirts.
I agree. Gold arm now.
Essentially, yeah, the gold arm's so cool. In hopes of finding a holocron, this is basically their mission to find this holocron, listing the names of Force-sensitive children across the galaxy. Cal and his new friends, Sierra and Grease, are following these clues left behind across the galaxy by Jedi Master Eno Cordova. His journey is going to bring him to the abandoned planet of Bogano, to Kashyyyk, where he begins working with Resistance fighter Saw Gerrera, which if you've watched the Clone Wars, Rebels, even a bit of Bad Batch, you kind of see him throughout Filoni's canon. Actually, I guess he's also in Rogue One. He goes to the desolate planet of Dathomir, once home to the Night Sisters, where he must face both darkness within himself as well as some other darkness on the planet that we'll get into in a little bit.
Yes,
and and lastly, he goes to the Inquisitorius headquarters of Mir, which
Nyeh.
is a terrible name for a planet. That's a whole other thing.
It's
But
a
in the
moon, to
end,
be fair.
yeah, in the end, Cal, now a Jedi Knight, after the end of the campaign, has not only reconnected to the Force, uh, and himself, but he makes the ultimate decision, despite everything he's gone through, so everything he's fought so hard for, to destroy the holocron he searched for to protect the children listed across the galaxy. Which, if you've seen Obi-Wan, kind of gets into the idea of the hidden path, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into the
Yeah.
next episode about Survivor. But yeah, Charlie, anything else to add about like the main plot of this
Um. Yeah. I mean, other than that's pretty much everything. Of course, there's a couple other planets you go to. You go Bogano, Zepho, Ilum, which is super cool to see.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot that takes place on Zepho, which like basically the entire story is following. Um, like Master Eno Cordova was kind of obsessed with this ancient civilization known as the Zepho. They were a
Yeah.
force-sensitive civilization, and basically through going through these ruins and following this path, Cal is at these force-sensitive places, these steeped in the force, and reconnecting with it, which was really cool and a really almost like mystic way to go about it that I think that sometimes the movies lose out on
Yeah.
is making, because like in the very first Star Wars movie, the idea of the Force is so mystical, you know, um and then it kind of gets lost as you get to like the prequels, and it's like, yeah, there's 10,000 Jedi and they're just here to fucking kill people.
Yeah.
So it was definitely it's definitely a really emotional game. It has great combat, as we'll talk about in a little bit. It's a very fun, almost Souls-like game, but man, it hits you right between the feels sometimes, and it's just
Oh yeah.
crazy. It is such a well-written game, but the main character, Cal Kestis, man, great character. He's about 17 years old during the time of the game, which means he was 12 during Order 66.
Excuse me.
And you're just going through his life as he's reconnecting with the
Yeah.
Force.
I love how they handled that in this game.
Yeah,
I mean, it
you
does do the video game things, and it's like, oh, the Force is a skill tree, but like the important powers and the important upgrades are all things that are his connection to the Force. Whereas,
right,
like everything you upgrade through the skill tree is just kind of like, oh, you're just naturally getting better as you go through the story. But it's like
yeah,
even
you get a
something
little
like
bit more specialized.
yeah, so it's even like something like just like the Force push. He's getting closer and closer to his connection with the Force.
Right, and the main moments of this deal with him when he's reconnecting the Force. He's really reconnecting to his memory and to the trauma that he's opening back up from his
Yep,
past, seeing the death of his master Jaro Tapal,
we love
which Jaro
Jaro.
Tapal is a really cool character. One, I can't remember the name of his race. I'm looking it up. Oh, he's a Lasat.
Yeah,
So he's a Lasat Bale. But he's super cool guy. I mean, he looks like what you'd think a Jedi general. He's buff and foreboding, but
the
he's
man's a
also
tank.
he's a tank, but he's also really profound. And like you can tell this man, he's not just a weapon. He is speaking to Cal when his Padawan years through these memories. And I mean, you get some great lines. Like some of them are literally steeped in 1,000-year-old Stoic philosophy. One of the things he
That's
says,
what I knew you were gonna bring up.
yeah, he brings up, this is literally basically pretty close to not only some Eastern philosophy, but it's pretty close to what Marcus Aurelius says in Meditations. But Gerald DePaul, is telling him at one point, the obstacle is in your path, define the path. What stands in the way becomes the way. Like that was like, boom. Like it really makes you feel like when you're playing this game, if you're living as Cal Kestis, you're understanding how to live again, which is a very powerful thing to think about. Like this kid's 17 and he's
Right?
experienced all of this pain, all of this hurt, and he's learning how to reconnect with the thing that gives him hope in the world. And Charlie talked about like the gameplay mechanics side of it, but it's like you are going from having such a limited things you can do, basically Assassin's Creed jump on stuff.
Yeah,
You got a
just playing
lightsaber,
Uncharted.
you're playing
Like,
Uncharted, you're climbing around stabbing people,
I'm looking for
to
yellow things to grab and
yeah,
climb
and then
walls.
all of a sudden, you get the ability to pool, and the world transforms to what you can do. And now you can push, and you can slow time. The world starts to change, and how you interact with it changes, which is great because this isn't like some odyssey where you're going planet to planet to planet to planet and like never backtracking. He's returning to these same planets in that almost like Metroidvania style game
Yeah.
play where you return to that area with new items, new skill sets, and the world is expanding before you. And in many ways, that's what's happening to Cal in his mind. He's beginning to see himself not as just this person who's trying to survive, but this person who's trying to make the world better. I mean, his world is expanding in front of him just as his mind is. It's an amazing way to transition gameplay into story, beyond just being the typical like, oh, to do this press X. No, like you learn things and get things
L2
at
to pull.
a time, yeah, at a time in which it's convenient to the story, and it comes with a lesson and reconnecting to the history. It is just such an awesome game.
Yeah, that's, you said it literally better than I ever could. And I thank you. I'm glad you're
But
my co-host.
more importantly, it is Jedi dress up also, which is hilarious. I never thought I would love this about the game, but like there's a running meme, and I mean, if you watched any of the press for Jedi Survivor, which is the sequel to this game, like the jokes about the poncho, like there's so many fun outfits in this game, and the poncho is the one that lives in infamy because it's kind of like the staple one, but it's so
Yeah.
it's so
I mean, you
funny. Like,
basically get like, oh, which one of these 4 colors of this one outfit do you want? And then, okay, here's like 25 ponchos. Customize your lightsaber and your ship.
yeah, it's awesome. And it's so fun. It made collecting and like exploring the game really, really rewarding. Not as good as Jedi Survivor in that, but like this
Yeah.
is the start. But yeah, I mean, I just loved Cal. He was a super cool character, but I think what made this game also special is it had a pretty limited cast of
Yeah.
characters, but they were all very real, and you had a sense, which is really important, especially in Star Wars that has such a wide reaching canon, to get this feeling that you are not taking place in a story. These aren't characters that you're just, no, these are people who we are dropping in, seeing what they're inhabiting. They had a life before this, and if they don't die, they will
They
have a
have a
life
life
after
after.
we're watching this. And yeah, there was a really, really in-depth characters. Who is your favorite character in this game specifically, Charlie? I'm curious what kind of drew you.
That's a good question. And it's kind of hard taking Survivor out of everything now because I definitely like, well, really all of those characters more. I think, personally, I think Marin was just in general is the most fascinating just because I didn't expect her
Yeah.
going into the experience. I think just Grease's dialogue makes me laugh constantly. And no matter what, I love him because he is just kind of like this point of like goofy joy and like almost like hominess to it.
Right,
Where,
but so for context for people who haven't played the game, Marin's a night sister.
yes,
So she's about 18 to 19. She's similar to Cal's age. All
she's
of her
literally the
friends
last Night Sister that we know of
that we know
canonically.
of. So
Yeah.
she has so much in common with Cal, and like they bond over that, and it becomes like a character that you're at first like, oh, this night sister is gonna f me up because she's raising the dead and like doing all this crazy cool witch stuff. To like, she is one of the only people who understands how Cal feels because of her experience and her age.
Yeah, they both
Um,
survived genocide. Like,
Genocide, yeah, 100%. I mean, Seer did too. Seer Junda,
yeah.
who is kind of the master throughout the story, but Seer is very closed off and not really she's dealing with a different type of trauma.
Yep.
You know, she's not really talking about how everyone she knew was murdered.
She's dealing with her own failures, and like,
which we'll kind of talk about in the second, which is a main plot of the game. But I think the important thing about is Grease is, and this is always important in Star Wars, especially when we're dealing with the Jedi. He's a straight man. He's you don't just have to have magic powers to have hope in the universe. You know, he's a little bit cynical at times, but you know, he's that kind of like Han Solo pilot where he's lost money or made a bad business.
He's always got gambling debt.
Yeah, 100%. You know,
classic archetype.
Yeah, he's the pilot. It's the archetypical sci-fi or space opera pilot.
Yeah.
So, but he's hilarious. He's a great character.
He's always that point.
But he's also in many ways, like, I don't want to say he's not a father figure, but he's like that weird, funny uncle.
Yeah,
everybody has that. Like,
not the creepy one, the funny one.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not gonna get into that. You know, he just makes you laugh, makes you feel good, and sometimes makes you think.
Yeah,
and you know, no, you're good. Go ahead.
No, he genuinely cares for Cal. Him and Cal probably have the best relationship, especially when you get to serve. Well,
but it lasts.
Yeah,
you know, that
and
is
like going into Survivor, like one of my favorite things, right? Is like, I just did like a side quest. And then, like, one of my favorite things is Cal's just like, wait till Grease hears about this. And then, like, later in the next game, you know, he's always telling people about the crazy things Cal's done. And that's, like, running throughout the game. And it's, like, even if it is just, like, in these optional little side things, like, I love that that's their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. You know, it provides something that, like, Cal does have this relationship with Seer Junda, who, like I said, she is this... she was a Jedi. Was she a Jedi Knight or a Jedi Master? I gotta look that up real quick. I'm curious.
I need to too.
No, she was a Jedi Master. She was a Jedi Master.
Okay, because I was thinking about it because I was like, well, they put Anakin on the council, but they didn't make him a master. So I was like, she wasn't on the council, but was she a master, or she was just like head knight with the Padawan? Like,
yeah,
Anakin.
So she was a master. But she she mentors Cal, but she's so cut off from the Force. She's scared because, I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but if you haven't played the game yet and you're listening to this and you've got so far into this conversation,
the sequel's out and we're 37 minutes in. I think we're fine to go for spoilers, but letting everyone know now.
Oh, I'm just saying, if you're gonna give me a problem, F off. She cut herself off from the Force because she gave into the dark side, seeing her Padawan become an Inquisitor.
Yeah,
she's one of the main the main villain of the game, who you don't realize this until close to the end. Well, that's not true. It's
like halfway. Yeah.
She's just called the second sister, and then you realize she's Trilla, who has actually been introduced by name a little bit earlier on, who is Seer's former Padawan, who Seer failed in her eyes to protect. And it's a really emotional story, seeing one Seer cope with everything that happened, feeling that like Trilla was her fault, and in some ways you could attribute that blame, but it does no one any good. And Seer kind of comes to that realization, and even Trilla like slowly realizes like she's given into this pain she doesn't have to, but in the end it's kind of all for naught.
Yeah,
because before she can give up, she's slaughtered by who else than in every other game or every other thing during this timeline. It's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen to this person, because how do we get from here to the original trilogy? Oh, they're just going to get fucking sliced in half by Darth Vader.
Basically, that's everything in this time period is like, oh fuck, he's here.
Literally every time
Rebels, this game, everything.
My wife is always like, so how are they gonna are they gonna die? And I'm like, probably, but like I'm not gonna think about it right now. We're just gonna blinders on, we're gonna play, we're gonna watch. But yeah, it was a really interesting story to see Sierra go from one closed off with the Force, but to go from being closed off in that mentee relationship, like, look, I'm just here to point you along the way.
Yeah.
where you need to go to like
It's
let me
so different than what we see.
guide you spiritually. 100%.
Like, I love like how different that is than like just like the original trilogy where we see Luke when the people he gets trained by are Obi-Wan and Yoda, people who literally Force Ghost.
Yeah, they're
Versus
literally
Seer, who at that time is just like, yeah, I'm kind of done with that fucking Force thing.
Yeah, she's like, well, I mean, this is how I do it, but like, yeah. So with it provides a sense of like not all Jedi are infallible,
Yeah.
and that's a great job that Filoni added, and the Obi-Wan show added, was just kind of fleshing out the real side of what happened to these Jedi and what it means to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
And going back into the philosophical notes in this game, it really is that truth in Star Wars about hope through adversity. It's ever present through basically every story that's told. It's always about hope. I mean, that's what the Force pretty much is. That's what people are saying when they say, may the Force be with you. It's a symbol of hope, right?
Yep.
And this is a different way to look at that story. This wasn't a just like, let's hope we live to see another day. This story was like a hope that we can find ourselves.
Yeah.
That
Find ourselves, find our meaning. Like,
you know, we died a long time ago, kind of thing.
yeah.
So it's a really great story. I mean, there was two kind of side characters. We talked about all these main players so far, but there was two side characters that were pretty interesting. One being the ninth sister, which she's just like this massive blunt force trauma villain, just here to to mess you
Yeah.
up. So she's
And then
pretty
she
cool.
ends up being like the goat.
Yeah.
She's great. I love Marin.
Yeah. Crazy character. And Taron Malicos.
Yes. Who I think is, I love seeing that. Just kind of like, he's a Jedi that survived, but he didn't come out the same.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of an outside force. It wasn't because of like, oh, Inquisitors, oh, Vader ruined me, or whatever. Or like, oh, like, he is like categorically different than those that we'd seen thus far in Star Wars.
Yeah, he wasn't broken. He was consumed by power and the hope that he could basically train up the Night Brothers and create a force that couldn't be stopped.
Yep.
He slowly was consumed. It was more of the archetypical dark side story where he's consumed by power. He's not broken into it. He doesn't accept the pain and the hatred. No, it was that, feel the power of the dark side kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean,
and
I'm certain, that 66 didn't hurt that, but
yeah, I mean, it is mentioned in the story like how that affected him, but you definitely get the idea that this is a more...
He's driven.
Yeah.
Like,
it's more of a... It's more of a simple story. It doesn't need explained away. It doesn't need these big character breaking moments. Just like, this is what the dark side looks like one way or other, So it was a cool character, super fun fight. I think it was pretty cool. May not have been like the most impactful character, but if you haven't seen what Taron Malicos looks like, just Google him. Look at his Sith form. He's absolutely formidable.
yeah.
He's horrifying to fight because you're like, oh, there's this old guy on this planet, and then you're like, this old guy is kind of jacked.
Also, I thought the whole thing was like, we find him as a wanderer, which I feel like it felt very much like Maul and Rebels, or very just like Zelda-esque, where there's just a strange old man to talk to you. Where you're like, he's like, hello there, traveler. Like, he's pulling that shit before you find out who he actually is.
Yeah, and also he's like literally one of the hardest like fights in the game.
Yeah, second hardest after.
Yeah,
the final
after
Trilla.
Yeah, after Vader. Yeah, or Trilla. Actually, that fight wasn't as bad.
Listen, that spinning fucking attack you can't block and she'll follow you when you dodge, I hate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean,
If you have to dodge last second, it's annoying.
yeah, so that's a
And I'm
perfect
like,
segue.
great.
We kind of talked about the characters. Let's kind of talk about the gameplay a little bit.
Yeah. I had to put her in a corner.
Yeah, so I will say, like,
Fighting get mechanics instincts, just like
this game definitely, and its sequel as well. If you haven't played a Souls style game where you are meant to die a lot, then good luck. First of all, I didn't play those kind of games. Or if you haven't played a game that is at least 15 years old, where the difficulty settings now are a joke to what they were back then.
it's also true.
It's like nightmare feel. Like you could play this on the lowest difficulty and still get your ass kicked.
The bosses in particular.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it could be a cakewalk, and then you hit a boss, and it's like there are so many unblockable attacks and like button mashing.
At least they tell you they're unblockable. Shout out to that.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But
there's some games where it's just that one animation you're gonna. Yeah.
I will say for me, like I really enjoy the combat in this game. It's super fun. If you want to play a game where you feel like a Jedi Knight, like someone butting into the Force, like you want to get into that headspace, like it's the game for you. It's so fun. Yeah. The world expands. You start to feel more and more powerful. You feel like Cal is really coming into his own. It's a great time. But how do I put this in a nice way? What was more dangerous to Cal's life? Fighting Terran Malicos, fighting the Ninth Sister, fighting these Inquisitors, or was it the fact that I probably fell 25 times into the void on every single fucking planet? And I was like, why is the hardest part of this game the parkour? It was I'm not a platformer guy, but you know, I probably what it is, Charlie. This is my punishment for when we were kids. I never played the Uncharted games with you. I never played them. And this is my punishment for not playing those kinds of games.
All the climbing is just like there was one point I was playing Survivor on stream. I was like on Jedi, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, you know, one day one of these devs they're gonna realize we don't like to climb this much.
Yeah, just like where the fuck am I supposed to go? You know, it's one thing like
that happens so much more in Survivor for me. Where I'm like, yeah, I don't know where to go. It says on the map there's something here, but I just jump off this cliff and see how far I can get.
Yeah, well, speaking of that was a really nice thing about the game is although it's hard, it doesn't try to trick you. It is fair. It is fair in its difficulty, and even playing it on the higher difficulties, things just deal more damage. They attack quicker. They have a few more things, but they're not just, hey, let's just cheese you. Now you might cheese the bosses as Charlie did. But
I got a clip that's getting uploaded soon.
Good. But you know, you could do it. Like you could genuinely figure it out and not have to watch, you know, a video on how to beat these people like Dark Souls, or have someone come fight the boss for you. But the parkour killed me more because I was just like, where am I supposed to go? And the worst part is if you were in a fight and then you were tried to run away in parkour, like you would die, and then it would treat it as if you died in combat, which means you lose your health, you lose your experience, and you have to go back and get it.
Oh yeah,
I mean, game says don't run away, which I'm like.
Yo, by the way, the bat was also hard.
The bat. Oh my god. Yeah, imagine a boss fight. But the boss fight is quick time grabs and depth perception. Yeah. I'm like, I can't even tell where I'm at. You're skydiving and like grabbing stuff, and you got to use the force to grab onto it, which is cool cinematic. Great job.
It's awesome to look at, but when you're like, fuck, miss.
And I'm just like sitting there like, death gripping my controller like I'm about to get into a car accident. I'm like,
Well, yeah, and
oh,
the first part of it's a fight that's really hard, and then it's just quick time events.
yeah, it's like, okay, fall and go this way and then grab on, and then he throws you off, and now you're jumping off this rock and doing the same thing. And meanwhile, BD1, your little robot who we haven't talked about at
Oh
all,
my god.
he's trying to hang on for
Side
dear
note,
life.
BD1's like a top 3 droid for me.
I'd say BD1 is definitely up there, top 3 for sure. He's this little cute droid about this big. And again, this is one of those things where it's like the world expands with you. He used to be the personal droid of Master Eno Cordova, and then he's kind of goes along with Cal for the remainder of his story. And dude, he is so fun.
Yeah.
He is such a cool little guy.
Heals you.
And you get these force powers, but then you also get the video game stuff of like, oh, I've got new tech, and you get to strap it onto him, and it's like, we're gonna be able to zip line, and then we're gonna be able to go backwards on a zip line. You can slice things open. Like, it definitely made you feel like you weren't only a Jedi, but you're occupying this new technological age.
The classic, cool. Also the classic Star Wars. I'm also somewhat of a mechanic / pilot myself.
Yeah, I'm a pilot mechanic who speaks binary.
Jedi.
It's like every Jedi character ever.
Hello,
like,
Anakin.
Hello, Anakin. Yeah.
Hello,
also,
Luke.
I hate and unrelated. Yeah, but it's super cool. I mean,
oh my god, he's a Scot. No, kidding.
He was a pretty fun character. Not that consequential. I mean, it's actually pretty consequential because a lot of the plot points come from him.
Oh yeah, everything from every Eno Cordova message comes from him. By the way, did you do the stuff where you re-explore Dathomir after you've befriended Marin?
Oh,
there's some fun dialogue options there.
Oh, cool. I'll have to go back and do that. Although, like, I don't know that I want to play a new game. I'll play it on the easiest difficulty. Just get to it. Because I don't think I can do it again, Charlie. This game is so hard.
Oh, you just have to walk to the place in the level. And the BD1 will have an audio prompt, and you just press down on the D-pad.
Oh, good. Okay, that's easy.
So you'll be like, oh, this is where I fought that bat. And she's like, you killed one of those? She's like, no, thank you for ridding Dathomir, that fucking monster. Dathomir, the planet home to Rancors, by the way. And she's like, thank God you got rid of the bat. They're awful.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was, yeah. That planet. I'm just having PTSD of all the times falling on Dathomir. Literally, just so many death screens. So many voids. Oh, man. Yeah, it's hard to like knock on this game too much because like where it's at its faults are really kind of where it makes the game seem realistic. Like it
shout out to Saw Gerrera also being in this.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I love that Saw Gerrera's everywhere.
Yeah, which is kind of cool because you're like, there's always
some people get upset about it, but I love it.
Why? Because no matter where you are,
he's instrumental to the rebellion.
Right. The rebellion is still going on. Like, that's the thing in this entire thing. We could be talking about the Jedi and that the Inquisitors are following you around, but there's stormtroopers everywhere. Like, literally. You really get the feeling that the Empire has this massive presence and they're coming at you. And, because of video game mechanics, you need to
You can't do the endless hallway bullshit or like, the fucking void of just stormtroopers coming after you.
Yeah, which is cool. But you're dealing with a lot of different types of stormtroopers and different.
Also, that's robots. Something I love that they created the Purge Troopers for this game.
Yeah, which if you haven't seen the art for the Purge Trooper, they look super great. There's a couple different versions of them, but they're just like they did so much in terms of design with this that really made the Empire
and
feel like. Okay, I could see if they have guys like this constantly around with rocket launchers and machine guns and
flamethrowers
and you got to fight all of them at once.
Yeah, and then just
could probably take over a town.
Yeah, throw some chicken walkers in there, fucking.
Oh my god, that fight.
You mean like 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah. Is it in this one that you have to fight 2 at once?
I believe that's on Ilum, right?
Yeah, I think that was on Ilum.
Yeah, the first one you get on Zepho. The
Yeah,
Zepho
it's on
planet.
Zippo.
Oh, I love that. But I feel like we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean it's
Anything
difficult
else?
because it's like you really want to just talk about Jedi Survivor, but
I
you know,
do
I
so
think I
much.
think without creating a 2 hour episode after being gone for a long time,
Yeah, I think that'd be a bit
we can't
much.
really talk about that. So yeah, I'm totally
Yeah,
cool. Kicking it off here, Charlie.
I think that'll do it for us. Let me
Yeah,
see.
cool. Well, you got any last minute notes before I set it
Great
off, Charlie?
game. It feels weird to just like talk about games sometimes and not be like have a finishing point because it's just not a review. I don't have my
Oh,
final verdict, you know?
I'll give you my final verdict. If you're looking for a canon Star Wars game that makes you feel like a true Jedi, this is the game for you. You are not only fighting like a Jedi, but you are learning to live like a Jedi. You are exploring worlds like a Jedi with their agility, their mindset, and their determination. Is it the greatest fighting game ever? Is the greatest third person action adventure game ever? No, but it is the only one like it. It is the only one like it in the Star Wars canon. And if you're super into Star Wars lore, I think you would be doing yourself a disservice by not playing this game for
Agreed.
yourself and experiencing the emotional ride that really tells the tale of what the Jedi are truly about.
That was absolutely perfect. I'd say if you like anything like Uncharted, Tomb Raider, Metroid Prime, Zelda, Ratchet and Clank, those are the ones that I feel are kind of in this weird cross sectionality of this, where it's like planet hopping, like Ratchet and Clank, going around exploring, kind of like Uncharted and Tomb Raider. It does feel Zelda-esque. Maybe it's because it's like you're fighting with ostensively lightsabers, a sword in space, but it is just like this cool puzzle solving exploration sort of deal. I feel like the puzzles are very Zelda dungeon-esque.
Yeah, they're not too hard, but enough that like you get pissed off and like have to leave the room, or you look up a walkthrough. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's definitely a fun
Why
game if
won't
you're
this ball go here? I don't know.
into those, and if you're looking for a game that like it's not going to completely do it, but you want something to scratch that like why is there not a Dark Souls Star Wars game? It's pretty damn close.
Yeah,
The combat is fun, especially if you put it on what is it, Grandmaster mode? I think is the
yeah, challenge
it's like
yourself.
yeah, you know, it will be challenging. It'll be, but it's definitely a good time. So
Yeah. Also, this provides like an ungodly amount of just like little detail lore if you want to bother going through and reading all the items.
yeah,
It will literally tell you about plants.
Yeah, there's a lot to read. BD is literally just the lore dump. I'm sure there's stuff that's gonna come out from Survivor that like none of us really thought about, and like
Oh yeah,
and that's the same
I
thing that
mean,
happened with Fallen Order.
I told you what that species is named. They're named after Kermit.
Yeah, just weird stuff like that where you're like, huh, like why is that
It's
there?
like, oh well, this is an alien now. Cool.
Yeah,
We'll see it.
we'll talk about Turgle on the next
Yeah.
episode, but
Yeah.
well, everybody, thanks for tuning in from all across the galaxy. If you liked the episode that you're listening to today, please consider subscribing to our podcast or sharing our podcast with a friend, a family member, or someone who loves Star Wars. If you want to interact with us, help make the show even better,
I hate motorcycles.
consider, yeah, what'd you say?
I said I hate motorcycles. So on
Oh,
a
okay.
motorcycle just drove. I just watched like my mic audio just go all the way to like yellow, and I was like,
Rip.
yeah. Anyways,
if you want to interact with us, help us make the show better, maybe help us avoid motorcycles, consider interacting with us on Discord, on our Discord here that Charlie and I are talking on right now, on Twitter using the links that'll be in the show notes. But once again, thanks for tuning in again. Goodbye, and may the force be with you.
see y'all. May the force be with you.